Bio Ecology Core Part III will be the first of two movies that grapple with climate change. Part 3, this movie, will present the mechanism of the greenhouse effect and introduce the central issue to climate change. The essential idea is the concentration of gases in the atmosphere affects climates experienced at the Earth's surface. Here's an outline of the 4 available movies as a part of Bio Ecology Core. Use this outline to find the movie you need for review purposes. This movie is focused right here. Here's a cartoon to keep things light, but remember that whenever environmental change occurs, natural selection accelerates, populations evolve, and some species may become extinct. Here's the first IB syllabus statement of the movie. Explain the greenhouse effect, including the role of greenhouse gases in maintaining mean global temperature. Reference should be made to the transmission of incoming shortwave radiation and re-radiated longer wave radiation. The various roles of solar energy are that they stimulate photosynthesis, they warm the Earth, they increase molecular motion, they heat the Earth unequally, which drives the circulation of air on the Earth, and solar energy evaporates water, and this initiates the water cycle. Now, solar energy streams towards the Earth. Now, some of the energy is reflected, and some of that energy is removed by stratospheric ozone. Short wavelengths of energy, visible wavelengths, reach the surface of the Earth, and in turn, the Earth re-radiates long wavelengths back out. But the long wavelengths radiated from the Earth are absorbed or held by the atmosphere and re-radiated back to the surface of the Earth, and this serves to keep the Earth warm. This is the greenhouse effect. Pay close attention as we move forward. Here it is again. Solar energy streams toward the Earth. The short visible wavelengths reach the surface of the Earth. Long wavelengths are re-radiated, and the long wavelengths are absorbed by the greenhouse gases and re-radiated back, keeping the Earth warm, a hospitable 15 degrees C. This is the greenhouse effect. Short wavelength solar energy enters the Earth's system. The warmed Earth emits long wavelength radiation back out. This is like a transfer of heat. The long wavelength radiation is absorbed by the greenhouse gases that retain the heat in the atmosphere and re-radiate it back to the surface. And this is what keeps the Earth warm, an hospitable 15 degrees C. I hope you're getting the idea. Apologies for the repetition. It's important that you take in the ideas. Once again, short wavelength solar energy enters the Earth's system. The warmed Earth emits long wavelength radiation. This is a transfer of heat. The long wavelength radiation is absorbed by the greenhouse gases that retain the heat in the atmosphere and radiate that heat back to the surface of the Earth. This is the greenhouse effect, and it's a natural phenomenon that serves to keep the Earth warm and hospitable for the life on Earth. Short wavelength solar energy streams toward the Earth from the Sun. The Earth re-radiates long wavelengths back to the universe. Some of the long wavelengths radiated by the Earth are absorbed by the atmosphere, greenhouse gases, and radiated back. This is the greenhouse effect, and it serves to keep the Earth warm, an hospitable average of 15 degrees C. This is a graph that I very much like, showing the relationship between absorptivity of various greenhouse gases against wavelength of light, and is presented in layers according to the 5 greenhouse gases: methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, carbon dioxide, and water. The graph shows the wavelengths that each gas absorbs. So for example, methane has an absorption peak here and here, meaning that methane absorbs wavelengths in this range and this range. You can see water absorbs all of these wavelengths quite well. Over here we see a huge purple peak, one large purple bar. That's an absorption peak. These wavelengths, very, very short, are absorbed by oxygen and ozone. We can see that the long wavelengths through here are absorbed by the greenhouse gases, water, carbon dioxide, ozone, nitrous oxide, and methane, while the shorter wavelengths are absorbed by ozone. But in this range, right here, there are no gases that absorb these wavelengths, so light streams right on through to reach the surface of the Earth. These are the visible wavelengths that get through the atmosphere to reach the surface. So the Earth absorbs the visible wavelengths, the short visible wavelengths, and re-radiates the longer wavelengths back out, and you can see what happens. The longer wavelengths re-radiated by the Earth are absorbed by these gases, water and carbon dioxide and ozone and nitrous oxide and methane. The greenhouse gases trap or absorb these longer wavelengths, and this serves to keep the Earth warm. Just in case, one more slide on the greenhouse effect. In this slide, there's an image of a greenhouse to help clarify the greenhouse effect. We can see short, visible wavelengths passing through the glass, the atmosphere. The glass represents the atmosphere. The wavelengths are absorbed by the surface of the Earth and re-radiated as long wavelengths back out, which are absorbed by the glass, absorbed by the atmosphere, absorbed by the greenhouse gases, and in turn radiated back to the surface of the Earth. This is the greenhouse effect, and it is what keeps the average temperature of the Earth warm. The Earth's average temperature is 15 degrees C. The Earth is warm due to the greenhouse gases. Without the greenhouse gases, the Earth would be an inhospitable negative 15 degrees C. The greenhouse gases are important. They play an important role in keeping the Earth warm. 15 degrees C, keep in mind, is an average temperature, but this graph, as you can see, shows that the Earth has variation in temperature from the equator to the poles. Due to the spherical nature of the Earth and the tilt of the Earth on its rotational axis, different regions of the Earth receive different amounts of solar energy. Equatorial regions more than polar regions. Regions are heated unevenly as a result of the spherical nature of the Earth and the tilt of the Earth on its rotational axis. But keep in mind that the average temperature of the Earth, due to the greenhouse gases, is 15 degrees C. Here are two IB syllabus statements that help us take our first steps towards climate change. Analyze data from air monitoring stations to explain annual fluctuations in carbon dioxide concentrations, that would be in the atmosphere. Explain the relationship between rises in concentrations of atmospheric carbon dioxide, methane, and oxides of nitrogen, and the enhanced greenhouse effect. This is a graph that shows the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the last 50 years, with a general increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide over that time. This data is well documented by monitoring stations in Hawaii and Australia. Scientists do not dispute this data. The yearly fluctuations are caused by changing seasons in the northern hemisphere. The high value in any one year is the result of winter in the northern hemisphere when little photosynthesis occurs, leaving higher values of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The lower value in any one year occurs during the summers in the northern hemisphere as plants actively take up carbon dioxide. But the overall trend is an increase in carbon dioxide over time due to fossil fuel combustion and deforestation. Keep in mind that there are climate change skeptics that think humans are not responsible for the increase in atmospheric CO2 levels seen here. The increase in carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, as can be seen here, this is the primary greenhouse gas driving climate change. Now consider the average temperature at the equatorial latitude as compared to the average temperature of polar latitudes. 15 degrees C is the Earth's average temperature, and global warming is an increase in the Earth's average temperature. So, global temperatures and climate patterns are influenced by concentrations of greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide, methane, and water. Climate change results from the enhanced greenhouse effect. It's an increase in the Earth's average temperature correlated with an increase in the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, an enhanced greenhouse effect. Global temperatures and climate patterns are influenced by concentrations of greenhouse gases. Storms are likely to be more energetic. Local climate is likely to be more variable, more extremes, from heavy rains and flooding to drought. Global temperatures and climate patterns are influenced by concentrations of greenhouse gases. Shifts in weather patterns, more energetic weather, more energy contained in air and water vapor. An increase in greenhouse gases influences global temperatures and climate patterns. Shifts in weather patterns, more extreme weather, from heavy rains and flooding to drought. Here's a list of 5 greenhouse gases, the same list as presented earlier in the graph, with the exception of urban ozone, presented in the earlier graph, and chlorofluorocarbons presented here. I'd like you to memorize this list, all 5 of these greenhouse gases. All of these gases absorb long wavelengths radiated by the Earth, and they re-radiate that heat back to the Earth to keep the Earth warm. Water and carbon dioxide are the most significant greenhouse gases because the quantity of water and carbon dioxide is quite high relative to the other greenhouse gases. The combustion of fossil fuels increases the level of carbon dioxide. Rice paddies and cattle farming will result in methane release due to the anaerobic conditions in wet paddies or the guts of ruminant animals. Fertilizers on the farm fields result in dinitrogen oxide, also known as nitrous oxide. And CFCs are released when refrigerators and air conditioners are discarded and during the process of making foam packaging. Here's a slide showing changes in the concentration of 4 greenhouse gases over the last 50 years. We can see an increase in carbon dioxide, an increase in methane, and an increase in nitrous oxide, and increasing CFCs with a decline since the 1987 Montreal Protocol, which was an international agreement that limited CFC production. It is the increase in the concentration of these gases in the atmosphere that's driving the enhanced greenhouse effect, driving climate change. So here are 2 IB syllabus statements that should be under control at this point. State that water and carbon dioxide are the most significant greenhouse gases. Other gases, including methane, nitrogen oxides, have less impact. Knowledge that gases other than carbon dioxide are greenhouse gases is expected. Include water, methane, and oxides of nitrogen. This would be N2O nitrous oxide. So now, could you compare the significance of the following gases as greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, and nitrogen oxides? Refer to both ability to absorb long-wave radiation and concentration in your response. Well, maybe. I've not yet talked about the relative ability and the absorption of long-wave radiation. Pay close attention as we move forward. So here's a graph that provides a comparison of the warming effects of 4 greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and CFCs. You can see that carbon dioxide represents a large share of the warming effects of the greenhouse gases, and water also, along with carbon dioxide, very important as a greenhouse gas because of the magnitude of their presence in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide and water, on a relative basis, are more concentrated in the atmosphere than methane, nitrous oxide, or CFCs. This table provides 2 different types of information. The central column provides an indication of the concentration of 5 greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. You have to examine units carefully: parts per million, parts per billion. Carbon dioxide has a higher concentration than any of the other 4 gases in the atmosphere. But the right column provides information about the relative warming effectiveness. Methane and dinitrogen oxide and CFCs have far higher abilities to absorb long-wave radiation. So while methane and nitrous oxide are found in lower concentrations in the atmosphere, their per-molecule warming effect is higher. In other words, the impact of a greenhouse gas on atmospheric warming is influenced by two factors: concentration and the ability to absorb long-wave radiation. While carbon dioxide has a relatively low warming effectiveness, its overall concentration makes carbon dioxide, along with water, the most important of the greenhouse gases. And that brings us to the end of IB Bio Ecology Core Part 3. Part 4 will follow up on climate change.